Welcome to the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. I'm your host, Emily Schmitt. On today's episode, we're joined by Emily Schmitt, Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel at Sukup Manufacturing. She shares her journey as a third-generation leader, balancing family legacy with innovation and Sukup's growing global impact from its Iowa roots. This episode is presented by Flynn Wright, Iowa's premier full-service advertising agency, serving clients from coast to coast for over 40 years. Experts in crafting stories that sell, Flynn Wright prides itself on helping brands drive performance and stay one step ahead. Emily Schmitt, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate you traveling down here. You know, we've had this scheduled for a little while now, but, you know, there are not many brands as Sukup Manufacturing that are as aligned with Iowa and agriculture as what yours is. So you're the Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel for Sukup, but you've been part of this company your entire life.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
No, I never realized how unique it was to be able to see both your parents at work. So my mom was a guidance counselor. So saw her at school, but then also after school walked down the street where Dad was working at Sukup's, and first jobs were in the print room and then in the shredder and things like that. So really great to see your parents engaged in what they love to do.
So Sukup, the world's largest family-owned and operated manufacturer of grain storage and drying, started in 1963, and I love these types of stories because today, you know, we see the brand everywhere. I mean, you know, and now we're in harvest season, and so everything is kicking up, and we're seeing all of this, and yet the story of the company, like many companies, they come from very humble beginnings. Do you think about that often?
Yeah, I mean, Grandpa just started. He was just getting some grain from his field to feed his livestock, and it got to be more than he needed. So he was, you know, the cool farmer on the block with the first grain bin. And as if, you know, every first iteration, if you think back to the iPod and iPhone, there's always huge leaps made once they actually go into practice and use. And so they started having moisture problems and the crust building up at the top of the grain. And being the lawyer that I am, I have to say, I hope Grandma was yelling at Grandpa. But he jumped inside the grain bin and then figured out how to break up the crust, but then invented a better way to do it.
I mean, of course he did.
Yes.
I mean, but it was a different time then. Mm-hmm. But I love the origins, and you do see this often where, okay, this isn't working. This is a problem. How do I solve this problem? And then he found a way to solve this problem and said, I could probably make this again and sell it a couple times. And then you fast forward decades, and now Sukup, and you just told me this number. You're present in 90 different countries across the world.
Yeah.
I mean, what an evolution, though.
And we also still make an iteration of the first invention. So there's still stirring machines out there being made and sold. So, and actually the first one he made was a failure. It was, you had to operate it by hand, and no one wanted to do that. So then he went back, you know, put more automation in there and gears, and here we are today and still making a iteration of it.
Does it still exist?
Yes.
Do you have it?
Oh, there are.
The originals?
Well, there's a couple of the augers that are original.
Are they like behind glass at this point? I mean, I feel like they should be.
There's a couple that are framed and put on the wall, but yeah, it's amazing to see just looking how we still see the auger every day too, and many of our products, and so it's great to see that that's where we came from. But we always are rooted in those humble beginnings, but you know, still going and selling into 90 different countries.
That's crazy. So let's go back a little bit, and you started telling us about, you know, your first jobs there, but were you aware at the time, like, I mean, you had to have been aware this is a family company, but was it just, I'm just going to go to work? I mean, that's just what we do in the family. Like, tell me about, like, those early days. Yeah,
well, I did scare my parents and almost didn't go to Iowa State. So I did, and, you know, I think that everybody knows we love Iowa State, and I do too, but I did look at a couple other colleges, and the real thing is that just Ames is home. Like, even though, you know, we would go there on weekends for football games, basketball, and just the sense of home that is there, you just can't recreate it. And Same with family business. You know, you have those aspirations when you're a kid and seeing what your family's doing. Our vacations was getting in, Grandpa and Grandma's van, and we would make our way all the way down to Jonesboro, Arkansas, the distribution center. But stopped at every place that Abe Lincoln stayed at, or lived on the way. So it was always business was always filtered in, and I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. So I think I was sort of a rebel of I didn't know if I would come back because I just loved law. But when it came down to it, if I'm going to be a lawyer and want to be in the business world, I want to use that passion, and I like to be just passionate all in for something. And so I wanted to put it towards our family company.
So, and you referenced it, the company started with Eugene, your grandpa, but then it went into the second generation with your dad and brother, and even more are involved today. Was it always known that people in the family, they had an opportunity to be involved, or what was that onboarding like, say, when you're a teenager, and we're going to get to you going to law school as well, but just like, was it talked about? Was it known? Because this was even then a still growing company.
Yeah, my sister, she graduated from Iowa State, and Grandpa said, "I'll see you on Monday." So that's what she had. For me, I definitely, we had the 3 years in law school, and it was actually there was some long-term employees that were retiring, and so Dad called me up, and he was like, "Well, can we actually talk to Andy about coming back to the company?" So my husband went back first, and then committed. And but you see it every day, and it's ingrained in it. And luckily, it says something about my dad for us still being involved. So my husband works there, myself, brother-in-law, brother, cousins, uncle. So I mean, it's something that we all are very proud, and we want to carry it on.
So clearly, it's successful. So I'll start that way. But what's the family dynamic like? Is that easy for your family? There could be some inherent challenges with that as well, but also some inherent ease of operations because of the positive dynamic that you can have.
Yeah, you want to bring your best every day, just as every other job. But when it is your family, it means more. The highs are high, the lows are low. And for us, we see each other 5 days a week. So I see Dad, husband, brother-in-law, brother, and then Friday night, most of us go to Gijo's. We go to the same restaurant Friday night, so we see us there. If it's fall, we see everybody at the football game on Saturday, and then we'll see them at church on Sunday. So we've been sort of immersed that this is our life, and we, unique to be able to share the different moments with each other too. Yeah.
Well, my wife and I, we've worked together for as long as we've been married. So, I mean, I get how positive that can be, but it is always an interesting dynamic where there really is no shut off from work, in any way as well, which, with you and your role, there probably wouldn't be anyway. You wouldn't have that luxury.
No. And like I said, highs are high, lows are low, but, we grew up in this, and, you learn and people so well, but at the end of the day, got to come together as a family.
So tell me about law school. So I heard you say you knew you wanted to do that, but the direction didn't necessarily lead back to the company. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that thinking, and you went off to law school, and then ultimately how that is beneficial for you today.
Yeah, so by 5th grade, my parents were like, "You need to get paid for talking because you talk a lot. So you should probably be a lawyer." So whenever I get direction or make a plan, I do it. And so went, to the eastern side of the state, University of Iowa for law school. And it was such a different experience for law school. It's you're graded against your peers, as in the actual bell curve shifts so that there is a max number of people at grade C's. So it's actually a bell curve that runs against you a lot. So it's very much Shark Tank. So that's learned a lot about myself, how to best study, because undergrad was just pretty natural for me, and law school was very much head down, figure it out. and you're graded in competition with your peers and friends too. So, but yeah, coming back, I really loved estate planning. So I did 2 clerkships in Des Moines with different law firms, one with work comp, and then the other one really was immersed in trust and estate planning. And that family aspect must have just always been ingrained in me of working with families. But ultimately, I saw I wanted to champion causes at a corporate level with using my law degree, and so that's what naturally came back. And my interview with Uncle Charles was 2 days, so it was.
You interviewed.
I interviewed, and it was 2 full days. So, and I said that you don't want to hire a lawyer that doesn't negotiate. So.
Did you? Okay. Was it sort of implied like, hey kid, this isn't yours? I mean, was it that kind of interview, or?
I think especially with family businesses, you want to make sure there's a need on both sides. So, I'm someone that I didn't want to come back and just seen as nepotism. And really, so when I started at the company, I wore a lot of black, tried to be serious and been like head down, show them that like your stuff and you deserve to be there because of what you know, and learned a lot from that because it really is about relationships, and just was able to overturn some different leaves in my own journey about carrying yourself, of making sure that you're connecting with people. They knew, you have a law degree. You don't have to prove that necessarily you're a lawyer, but connecting with people is what the main goal is, to be able to get your job done, but also every day you're working and you should make those connections, and we were built for that.
So now that you go through the interview and you're here, what type of leadership lessons were you learning, or maybe what did you learn during law school that you immediately could apply, and then what type of leadership lessons were you observing, while in your role with general counsel? Yeah,
for law school, you were definitely taught to not just look at what the facts are in front of you, but what they say and show, and all the different point of views that you can get from it, because you have to be ready to argue either side. And so we did practices of that, of looking at the different, why did the case be successful, but also just with the set of facts, you can have different point of views. So it definitely shapes you in trying to think of just the different points of view, whether it's a business decision, whether it's a project or working with other people. You can really dissect and see all the different perspectives other than your first one that you saw. So I think just that dynamic thinking of all the different possibilities really helps in the business sense of things, because there's not just one way to do a project, and you have, each person is a different person. So when you're working with a group, anytime it's a different group of who it is made of, it changes perspectives, it changes what you can achieve. And so just that dynamic thinking and being able to be nimble depending on what you need for the situation really applies in business.
Is that your role now? When you're having these conversations, say at like a leadership level, are you doing that pushing and pulling on ideas in the room?
Yeah, I love brainstorming. I love getting with a group of people and just being a contributor, but also a cheerleader for others' ideas.
Okay.
Because I love thinking about, when someone else has a perspective. One of my favorite, and this is a very simple one, but I like to meet people where they're at. So if my dad, he's known for his crazy ideas, spontaneity, and it was funny, he had said something about that I was so practical, and I go, practical? I'm not known for like being the normal practical one, but with Steve and his creativity, I dial it to the more practical side of how do we get it done. So with my team, when we were brainstorming for different ideas, and we had new members on the team, and Amy was planning our first walk around our new walking path. Mm-hmm. And she goes, I have a crazy idea. Can we invite the Iowa State Marching Band? And I was so proud. I was like, that is amazing. I love that you came with a crazy idea. And they came. We had a small group of them. And so our inaugural walk on our walking path had the Iowa State Marching Band.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I've actually run across this recently just on social media, and I've heard leaders say things like, I'm glad that I have people around me that don't always agree with me. And I feel like if you can have this neutral sense, or you can see both sides of it, then you can play that role to the benefit of the company and the organization.
Yeah, and when you're trying to implement a project, especially with how uncertain these past five years have been, there's always a twist at every turn, and having the different people on your team that think differently than you, and that's something that I engage with the team on. Is we really do recognize and understand. We take the time to understand each other. And I think that's something that's not given enough time on.
Yeah.
So we have 3 different personality tests, and one is just like a basic. Everybody who comes employed at the office does it. There's a lion, which that's me, a lion, a golden retriever, an otter, and a beaver. Beavers are the details. Otters are the feelers and the relationship people. Goldens are the planners, and lions are the doers. But we have also an Enneagram test that says, how are you motivated? And so I have a team member who is an Enneagram 3, and so achievements and levels and unlocking something to get you to the next place is how I know she likes to be motivated. And then there's a working genius test that says, when you're part of a team, what are your skill sets? So I am an evangelizing, galvanizing. So I'm an evangelizing innovator. There we go. And that's something that I can rally a team. We can brainstorm and have ideas, but we know that it needs to be passed off to those tenacity people to get it done. So we just very much know who we are, know how we work together, and really treat it as batons, not delegation.
So knowing other people's personality types and how they operate, does it help you then calibrate? I mean, I heard you mention how you approach a person, but it has to also help you regulate when people are not like the same doer as you are, and yet they provide a different value to the organization, or just as much value, but in a different way. And so it's this meshing of all of these different people.
Yeah, and it's recognizing that that's how they're built too. So it's really seeing them for who they really are.
Yeah.
And so setting them up for success looks different for each person because of that.
So I found it interesting when you were talking about, you see each other during the week, and then, it's football Friday night or football Saturday, here at Iowa State, and then it's church on Sunday. And so there's clearly this local understanding, but also when you go in on Monday, or when you think about the company, you're this large global company. Does sometimes those two things, is it easy to balance those two things?
I don't think I've met anybody that's been able to balance it perfectly. And so I think for just being able to really advance at the company, we've been very much investing in our people. And so as we grow, it's similar to what you're talking about with our family. So as family grows, as the business grows, you have to evolve with it. And that's something that I think we very much take to heart, and we innovate through uncertainty. We try to invest in our community, our employees, because that's what we're known for. And that way we can help all grow together.
What qualities has the company, and I'll ask you specifically, but have you and the company grown when it comes to just like manufacturing today? Because again, I said it early on, your brand and company is synonymous with Iowa agriculture, and it's global, as we've talked about as well. But there's clearly a secret sauce in all of that I'm sure any company, not just in manufacturing and not just in ag, but they would want to learn from. So what type of emphasis do you place to really, that has positioned Sukup in that way as far as manufacturing?
Yeah, so we're 62 years young, and
it is young though.
It is, yeah.
I mean, that's very young.
Yeah, and lots of the big Iowa ag companies really did start in the 60s. It's been fun to see sort of the comparisons and the similarities through all of our family businesses. And when it was 60 years, we really wanted to dig more into that. because as we are growing, we want to make sure what makes Sukup stays. And so we went and did we developed the Sukup standard. So went through, and that's the values that, what will not change with the business that we want to make sure when we're making decisions, hiring people, executing, what are we thinking about, and what's the most important thing that shouldn't be lost. And the first one is care for others. And that's something that, everything we do, we still think of the employee as them and their family. We've had $0 healthcare premiums since the 70s. We built an on-site clinic that's free. You get to clock in, clock out, where normally you just would have to take off hours of work because in Sheffield, Iowa, you're 20 minutes away from everything.
Yeah.
So clock in, clock out. You make up your time most of the time. But then also we just opened a child care center in Sheffield. So we went from 33 spots in Sheffield to almost 100 total, within one year.
Yeah.
And so care for others is huge. And then it's a make it happen, because when it's something about Steve is very action oriented, and so when a customer calls in, it doesn't matter which Steve answers the phone. We have many, but we want to be there and get that customer their need, and so we say make it happen, but also put your name on it. So obviously we have the Sukup name on the side of the grain bins, but we want every employee to think about their contribution to everything is quality so good, they put their name on it. And my favorite twist, because when you're coming up with these, you don't want it too generic.
Yeah.
And so we were nitpicking a little bit how it would be and what words. And Steve just scribbled in something, and it said, quality so good. So good. Put your name on it. And we're like, yes, we love Iowa State. We love Sweet Caroline.
I love that.
Yeah, so I was like, done. That's what it is.
What I find interesting about all of these, in many ways, core values, is that not once through all of this did you talk about necessarily a grain bin.
Right.
You're talking about people, you're talking about how you treat employees, about how you enlist them to love coming to work every day. And again, not one, clearly there's engineering involved and there's technology involved in your company, but the things that you just listed off were all about people.
Yeah, and that's when someone compares us with our competitors, it is people know that we know who they are, we know our customers, we know our dealers by their voice. So it's something like, oh, hey, I know this is Joe on the line, and all of the markers that really is the tales that really tell Sukup. Show all those. So our safety home is a 18-foot diameter grain bin converted into a shelter or home. And farmers are the first one at the ag show saying, wait a second, it is too hot. I've been in that bin. But we have a double roof on it, so it's like stepping into the shade. But really it was a safety director emailed Steve saying, how about bin homes for they're earthquake proof, because just was a earthquake in Haiti the night before, and so when he woke up and saw all the news of the crushed rubble, first thing this person thought of was, what about bin homes, earthquake proof, termite proof, and Steve said build a prototype. So what company is it that you can just say like, hey, we should take our grain bins, make it into a home. It'll be for nonprofit, so you're not going to sell it for money. You're going to want to put it out into the world, and that product is the one that embodies our culture and our values.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to come back to that, but I found one statistic, and it might be slightly off from now, but 30% of your full-time employees have more than a decade of experience just in your company alone. And so even if the numbers aren't 100% correct, I think it speaks to the testament that once people come into the door and they realize how much the company cares and how much freedom they have, for ideas like this, that they want to stick around.
Yeah, we definitely take ideas from everywhere. Like I said, that last one was safety director to Steve. You find leadership out on the floor. really there to make everybody's jobs, go as best as they can. So like if we hear that something isn't working out, then we will go out there and we'll figure it out and we'll make it better. And it's not just saying that or putting out in recruitment ads. We don't have to do recruitment ads because we are an employer of choice because of the referrals.
Yeah.
And I think it goes to a lot of the Sukup standard that we do care for others.
Yeah. This episode of the Area Podcast is sponsored by...
You have a story to tell. That story has a job to do, to be seen, to be heard, to sell, to find inspiration and insight, to use persuasion to change behavior, to turn strategy into tactics, tactics into action, to sell. Nobody does that better than Flynn Wright.
It all started with the mulch colorant that made our name. And now, Color Biotics manufactures millions of pounds of product month after month, bringing brilliance and resilience all around the world. And as we look ahead, all we see is growth. A growing customer base and growing sales mean a growing team. From the lab to the field, backyards to ball fields, and beyond. We need vivid imagination, intense passion, and brilliant ideas. If that sounds like you, we have one question. Are you ready to get to work? colorbiotics.com/careers.
Just south of Iowa State University, in the heart of the Midwest, sits the Iowa State University Research Park. 550 acres of opportunity and innovation. With over 1 million square feet of developed space, it's home to more than 145 tenant companies, from startups to global leaders. Discover innovation hubs, collaborative spaces, and a community that's shaping the future. Whether you're scaling up or starting fresh, ISU Research Park has room to grow. Visit isupark.org to learn more.
So let's come back to these safety homes. So I actually spent some time recently. It was during the Sukup Day on Iowa State's campus, and I spent and I've known about these before, but I spent a good amount of time with a couple of the people from Go Serve Global, and so they were putting up one of these homes right on campus. You were feeding every college student that walked by. I mean, I don't know how many pizzas that you guys went through that day, but it was pretty fun to see. But the way these things go up are really incredible. So I'm going to read a little bit, and you teed it up wonderfully. But in Haiti, it was post-hurricane, and so, Haiti was destroyed, and then this idea came that Steve actually, immediately said, yep, build a prototype, and then it went into production, and you worked with the nonprofit Go Serve Global, but it is essentially, it's a grain bin that's turned into a home. These things can last 75 years. In fact, years later, in Haiti, another hurricane came through, and every one of them was still standing after the Category 4 hurricane went up. And so they're relatively affordable to put up. You had talked about they're fireproof, they're waterproof, they're termite proof, and they're really a blessing to not only the community in Haiti, but now they're in several other countries as well.
Yeah, the Hurricane Matthew, when it was even before it hit land, we could tell that the eye of the storm was going towards Lacaille, Haiti, which is on the western side of Haiti, and we knew it was going to be direct. And so we had actually put in production 10 more safety homes before the hurricane hit because we were ready to send more down.
Yeah.
And after that, it was all 200, little to no damage. And we heard the stories of families, and one of them was a mom that, her home was just, demolished, and she was army crawling, trying to get to the next house. The next house wasn't there, but the only thing that they could see, and I'm getting chills, telling this story, was safety home, and they had up to 50 people in each safety home. I mean,
just for protection.
Yeah, just for protection, but they were all standing up because those were the only structures that were still standing. And so from there, it was, okay, God's put us on this mission.
Yeah.
It embodies our Sukup standard to the T, and we got to get more out there. And so Go Serve Global is the one that really takes that fellowship to the next level of, where do we put them, who gets them, but then also for the safety homes, we were down there. It was only after Grandpa's passing. So in 2018, we had originally had planned to go down to Haiti. It was my husband, myself, our PR person, and then actually Sage Rosenfels. And we still went, flying over, seeing the safety homes in Haiti, knowing that this wouldn't be possible without, grandfather jumping into a bin in 1963, Steve saying, build a prototype. And it's something that it's keeping people alive. And so we see it on the side, we see it on the sides of the roads, at the farms. We went to an orphanage that was out of food. So my husband and I said, okay, we'll go buy rice, beans, deliver it. And they were asking us questions, and these kids we had a translator, and the translator like, oh, well, they're confused. And I go, they're metric system, aren't they? And he's like, no. He's wondering, why do you put grain in their house? And that's another every
fair
time
question.
I tell it, right? I mean, they just see that as that is their house, that is the shelter. And for us, we have, at the ag shows, we have to convince people, like, yes, this is a solution. Mm-hmm. And the ones that have it as their home say, like, why do you put grain in our house?
Yeah. And in addition to the protection, and you noted it, but you're providing people community as well. I mean, you're providing them, yes, a safe space from, these external variables. I mean, like a hurricane, and, I couldn't imagine being in that home during that, and yet they were safe during it. But then in those off hurricane times, which is the most of the time, like, you're providing community to these people as well.
Yeah, and GoServe uses construction crews that are Haitian construction crews, so it provides jobs as well. They pay those crews to build the homes, and they, just when we were down there and we built one, there was only one power drill, and it was shared between 3 different sites that we were building, so we didn't have one for a while. And it was, half of the crew, we had the language barrier. But, you can poke bolts through and you understand, like, I'll start poking this and they'll start spinning on the other side. But it can be put up in less than 6 hours,
right,
taken down in 2 without any, electrical tools on hand.
I mean, it's really an engineering marvel, a bit. In one of the flyers that I saw, it talked about being a world changer, and clearly this is part of that. But this permeates across. Again, we're talking about things that have nothing to do necessarily with grain bins and dryers, but we're talking about this global impact as well, about being a game changer. Yeah,
and this goes to how we were brought up too. It's we definitely are a faith-filled family, and I grew up, when we go to Okoboji and stay with my grandparents, he read, the daily testimonial every day and the readings. I saw I'd see my dad, go down to his knees and pray before going to bed at night, and saying prayers to our parents too. And so we were definitely brought up that we're not here to just make a product or to be here and achieve things. We're here that, God made you special, and there's something inside of you that is different from everybody else. And it's about bringing your God-given purpose and talents to achieving more than just, engineering or selling a grain bin. We're there to change people's lives and how we serve, and we want to do it for the glory of the God.
Well, I will tell you this, that over the past couple months, but as recently as you were at our manufacturing breakfast event, which was in the Sukup zone. We'll talk about some of that. But the number of times that I have heard other leaders in other industries, in this case it was part of education, they said, we're working with Emily Schmitt at Sukup to help develop that. Again, you're doing things beyond just the core product. You're trying to educate and work with K-12 school districts for the betterment of students as well.
Yeah, and that was a surprise. I think that was Scott.
It was.
It was Scott with Ames High School, and we also are there to train our next generation. Yeah. Whether it's our kids, whether it's our employees' kids, or our future employees or future customers, and very much have a call on my heart to make sure to how can we meet students where they're at. how can we get them education about ag and in Iowa, and how can we really get in front of them so that they stay here in Iowa? And there's so many, we think about marketing strategy and business strategy for our products and getting it to market and producing it. Well, we also take that same mind work to just community, but also that recruitment strategy too. So we want the students that are graduating in Ames, Boone, et cetera, to know that you can do any job that you really want to in Iowa.
Yeah.
So get in front of them and go to the robotics club, have them come. Our first manufacturing day was in 2014. We had 250 kids sign up.
Yeah.
They want to know more. They want to know how things are made. And so it's fun to be able to give those experiences because, like I said earlier, I didn't realize how special it was to be able to see your parents at work, like during their day jobs. So I could see different opportunities and jobs. So we got to do that to the next generation too.
So how do you, as a leadership team and with you, how do you ensure that things don't slip? Because the core product can never slip. I mean, you're able to do all of these other things because of that infrastructure
Right.
that has been built and that you need to sustain and continue to innovate into the future. And so you can't lose sight of that in order to do these other things. You're able to do these other things because that continues to be core. How do you balance all of that as a company?
Yeah, and just growing up and watching the leadership of Steve out there. So we do not, 85% of the products that we make now, we did not make before 1998.
Really?
Yes, so we are definitely where's the market going, but also where are the customers going, what do they need? Because we started off as the accessory company. So we had the stirring machines, fans, and then the different bin companies were buying up those. So it was either, okay, you got to jump in and you have to start being a bin manufacturer or you'll get bought. So Steve went down, bought machines, brought them back. And
As
said,
he does.
Yep, and he's like, by the way, we're getting into the bins. And each way, there, the innovation that we talk about of, so the innovation of not just like the products itself, but where is the customer going and what do they need?
Yeah.
And that goes to knowing them, knowing their pain points, knowing what's helpful and valuable to them. So that relationship with the dealer network and the end users really pushes us to keep up with that because we care.
Yeah. Steve Jobs was always, notorious about telling people, and he was very arrogant, in a certain way, but he always said, we're going to tell people what they want and what they need. Do you have a sliver of that as well? Like clearly there's a listening component, but you also have innovation where you can input that, but also as a company, you can see like, okay, here's an opportunity where we can improve our own products that maybe even the farmers are not aware of. I mean, is there a bit of that as well, or how does that prototyping go?
Oh yeah, Steve looks at everything and say, "Oh, we can make it better."
Yeah.
So that's the mindset that we go into it of we can always make it better.
Kind of the origin story as well, though.
Yeah, definitely.
What things are you excited about? I mean, looking into the future. I mean, are some of those things? Maybe you can't talk about some of them. I really don't know, but. Or what are some of those things?
Well, I think part of it is, you see sustainability out there.
Yeah.
And for our products, I mean, steel is recyclable. Steel is something that can be reused, can be melted. Our steel has always been U.S. steel, and a lot of the mills use recycled steel for it. So it's something about, everybody is having that, climate and sustainability discussions, and we're hoping to, and we still serve the great ethanol plants out there. That renewable fuels are huge for Iowa, for our farmers, for sustainability, and so tracking where that goes and how can we best keep that roadmap of serving, but in a way that is giving back almost to make sure it's done in a sustainable way. That's going to be even more to the top that you see right now. And also just the innovation of just the workspace, the automation that's coming with AI, different things like that. I mean, we're jumping in and making sure to do our research, to look into how best do it. We created a farm team that's the future of agriculture research and modernization. So the farm team, they get together, it's cross-functional. We have someone from the plant floor, we have supervisor, we have tech, engineers, et cetera, and they look at and they have those questions of where is it going, but also what could we make?
Yeah.
And so that's fun to see, and we really have been loving our Ames location for that reason, because the research park has so much connections of the different companies, the innovation,
Yeah.
the digital lab, et cetera, that really goes into that.
Let's talk about the connection to Iowa State. So earlier this year, Sukup announced a larger footprint in the Iowa State University Research Park, and you touched on it a bit as far as the proximity to other companies. And, it's no shock. I do tell people this often, that now in a technology landscape where we can talk to anyone across the world right now and we can collaborate, proximity still matters geographically, and I think that's one of the reasons why the research park continues to grow and be such a central hub for agriculture that impacts the world, is because of that proximity and, of course, the adjacency to the university and just the resources that are coming out of the university as well. I mean, is that why you wanted a larger footprint at the research park? I mean, obviously your entire family and company has ties to Iowa State, but
Yeah, I mean, just being right at the heart of it is great, and it's great for recruiting as well. The college kids that still want that vibrant town to live in, because Sheffield, Iowa is 1,200 population, bringing 400 to 600 people each day. But the Ames hub has grown naturally. It's our fourth different location here in the research park.
Okay.
And it was, I called Dan Colhane in 2017, and I said, well, Steve said he wanted to hire someone with an iPhone. So I knew that meant we need an Ames office close to the college kids. So that's how I interpreted it. And he drove us around, but landed at the research park, and Steve Carter's vision and build out to it. Just knew that that's where, we have these investments that you mentioned with Sukup End Zone, Sukup Hall. We can be right there when they graduate. We can be right there that they can have jobs during the year. And one of my favorite stories is that we actually had a senior engineer, worked for us more than 40 years. His family was going to move down to Des Moines because their kids grew up, they already graduated. So we were like, well, Randy, would you want to work out of the Ames office? And so it was the reversal of like a family moving to the cities, and he could still work with us. And I loved the connections of the engineers together, that these interns could work with someone that's worked with us for 40 years and pass that knowledge on too.
Well, you think about, the name is everywhere, but it's a testament to the product and the desire to give back. So, you referenced the End Zone Club. We hosted an event there. It's a beautiful space, and obviously it gets used throughout the football season and really throughout the year as for the community. I know the Boys and Girls Club generally holds, their event there every year, which is really wonderful, and Sukup Hall as well. But this idea of philanthropy and giving back to the community that has really also invested in Sukup just through agriculture as well. I mean, is that the thinking behind this? And then how do you manage all of the asks that you get? I know that you also have some footprint in the future side town development that is going on. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, something with family businesses, you always find those things that we can all just agree on something, and one of those is Iowa State.
We like that.
We love Iowa State, and we love Ames. So that's a biggest driver for that. But the value that we saw in our own education and how Iowa State educates and how inventive they are is definitely up to the top of why we also are so connected there. But then just knowing Matt Darr and his research team is 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
So we have some research projects with them, and I was in the Ames office, and I was like, oh, Casey, do you think I could run over and see it? And Bailey was ready in 1 hour, and to be that connected to projects that you have, to be able to continue different internships that would normally be in the summer throughout the year, really provides those touch points so that we see the recruitment back to Sheffield. Some of them, we have a car that goes every day to Sheffield, so we try to make it easy too, because we want them plugged in where we're making the products, but also a space in Ames to really have that innovative and next looking forward-looking environment.
So when you think about leadership, what are some things that you've either had to push yourself on or continue to think about where you're challenging yourself to be a good leader? Because I think one of the hallmarks of leadership is continuing to stay sharp and probably pushing yourself in ways that are not always comfortable or the way you've done things in the past, and I think that's healthy.
Yeah, and I actually have an ISU themed leadership trio, and number one is invest in others, and so that's something, paying your civic rent is something one of my mentors, Sukup Manufacturing, says is pay your civic rent, and part of that is whether. For me, engaging in our government affairs and things like that, paying your civic duties there, but also investing in others because the reason you are today, who you are, is because of people invested in you. Whether it was negative or positive, or whether it was intentional, you are influenced. And so, any position that you have, you can be a resource, you can be a support system, and investing in others has really allowed me to grow as a leader, because you learn things about yourself as well. Yeah. So investing in others is a huge thing. I sought mentors. Yeah. I literally just asked people, and I got turned down once, but it was one of those where a couple years later I found out they were going through cancer. Okay. And so but it was great that they knew their boundaries of no, but I sought them out, I asked for it, and that's where I learned the most. So then S is speak with love. Because, I think I talked a little bit earlier about coming back, and I wanted to disprove the nepotism, right? Because that's what you see a lot or hear. And I wanted to be that lawyer. I wore black because I was afraid to be seen as Elle Woods, and really just nose to the grindstone. And we were moving into a new office building, so it was 2014. And an employee came in because they were upset because I took printers away because I said, we're not going to have Matter Desk, we're going to have the Biz Hubs, doing different efficiency gains as we planned out this office. And they were like, Emily, why do you hate me, or something like that? And I just started crying. And one thing they didn't know is I had 2 miscarriages in the past 4 months of that moment. And in there, they saw me as a human. And when I shared my story, I felt a little bit more free because I had been keeping it in. And from that day forward, I would say hi every time I walked by that person's desk, but also others. Ask people how they're doing, and really people just want to know who you are inside. And you don't know what people are going through because they didn't realize, they saw me as just the tough, getting things done for efficiencies, moving in.
The lion.
The lion, exactly. And so circle back, and I have someone on my team that was out in Pennsylvania, and they came back. They were in a different team, and they came to the admin team a little while ago, and they said, Emily, something's changed. And I go, yeah, I had some transformational time looking inwardly. Yeah. And now I'll show people who I am by showing up every day and speaking with love. And it leads into the you, which is undeniably be yourself. I was so afraid of being seen as Elle Woods, and I just wanted to be tough, knowing that I was there. But when I had a pink coat that was in my closet for 3 years because I kept on thinking, I don't want to be Elle Woods. I put it on, go to work. No one's surprised that I have a pink coat. and that's something of, they know that's who I am. And once I broke through that, show who you are, make those connections, and don't be afraid of it, because my lion instinct is to guard myself and be protective. But once I started realizing, pull those guards down and show people your insides, which is scary for an Enneagram 8 as well. That's when the connections come. That's when the growth comes, and people accepting you for who you are can only come if you do that.
Yeah. Do you find yourself mentoring people now, and maybe they don't know that you're mentored? But I'm not asking for names, but could you say, "Yep, I think that I am"?
Yeah, I think any interaction that you have, people can influence them, and whether it's a intentional action or not, there's those times that you remember someone else doing something, and for when people fly by on the road and pass you and cut you off, in my head I try to say, hey, someone's having a baby in the back seat. They need to get to the hospital, right? And so when you give people grace, that's a lot of times when they receive it the most if they see the grace that you give them in those hard moments, or when they're not expecting it. And so I think just the hello in the morning, how are you, and actually stopping for a second and listening to their answer, it could change someone's day.
Yeah. The leadership is hard. I mean, it really is. And I tell people this because you have to have this combination of vision, but you also, kind of bad stuff rises to the top at times. And then, the leaders are the ones that have to have those tough conversations at times and make those tough decisions. And yet you have to keep it all together in front of the majority of people. And it's hard. And I appreciate, you sharing some of the things that you thought about, because you did want to prove yourself, and not just that this was given to you, and that was important. And you're a woman leader in agriculture that, isn't generally common, as you know. And so I just see all of this wisdom coming from you that you can impart to people that you impact the most.
Yeah, and that's something that that you really find yourself who you are in those tough moments. But most of all that I've learned is, if you are yourself, if you bring yourself to work and your team knows who you are, those tough times, that's why they are there to support you too. Something very even simple. If I'm having a really stressful day and my assistant sees that, she'll just bring in a bottle of water. If it's like a really bad day, she'll bring in like Diet Coke and Cheetos.
Here you go. Here you go. I know what you need.
And then it's like, Emily, okay, you got to relax. It's okay. It's going to be fine. But in those moments, that's when like you have those connections. So you build the relationship so that in those hard times, in those tough moments, you have people that are there with you, that want to help you, and that make, it breaks you down too, because it's like, oh, okay, I can tell that I'm emanating a little bit right now, and I should settle down, but accepting that as well, because I'm so glad that I'm able to have those interactions and relationships with team members.
How has learning international business been for you and the company? I mean, that's you're dealing with different laws, different regulations, different cultural things that are important in one area and another area. Has that been challenging or relatively smooth?
Well, tariffs is a 4-letter word for us.
Okay.
So that's definitely been a rocky part. And, some of the trade deals that are closing different grain markets for our farmers is definitely hard. And that's something that I like to say we very much promote food chain independence and energy independence. And we want to make sure that in the U.S. we can say that we have a secure food chain, and that means a vibrant and healthy agriculture company industry. And then supporting, energy independence is back to that ethanol again. So those type of international plays and factors definitely rise up, but we always innovate through uncertainty. And we have a Sukup Europe location in Denmark and a joint venture manufacturing plant in Ukraine even.
As general counsel for a premier ag company in the United States, how much do you invest and think about sort of like these federal level type things?
Yeah, I had the honor to be Congresswoman Hinson's guest to the State of the Union, and so D.C. Is one of my favorite places to bring people to them, see what government does, where it's at, and to really be active in those food chain independence and energy independence. You have to be at the table, and you have to make sure that you're engaged so that you're protecting your industry, your farmers, and it does take engagement. And so that's where I was told, pay your civic rent, and I saw that with my father Steve as well growing up, of getting plugged in and being at the table so that people know the ag industry. The reason that FFA membership is increasing, even though kids growing up on farm is decreasing, is they want to know where their food come from. So you have to educate. Like, there's no ethanol at gas stations in Washington, the state of Washington, but they're known for very much pro-climate, sustainability. So we were in D.C. just a couple months ago with Growth Energies and telling them about ethanol and telling them about why they need to have that in their state. So really just love educating what ag is, because many people don't realize how far it reaches, but how important, especially in the past 5 years with everything in flux, we really need our food chain in the U.S. really secure and strong.
So any given quarter, I'm gonna paraphrase here. You could be in D.C. a handful of times thinking about federal policy. You could be in Brazil or any other one of the 90 locations where you can find the Sukup brand.
Yep.
And then on Friday night and Sunday morning, you're in Sheffield at football and church. Did I get it?
Close. I live in Clear Lake, but same.
Okay.
Yeah. Des Moines, Ames. All the
And
all
thinking
the
about the
locations.
farmer next door and all of that. I mean, it's you're running the whole range here.
Yeah, and it's fun. I'm blessed to also be able to work and travel with my dad too, and so. You cannot go anywhere without people, saying, "Hey, Steve," and that's something really neat to be able to say that from small town Iowa. My grandpa jumping into that grain bin. Lessons I've learned about connections and just being across the table and side by side with people. And that translates everywhere.
Yeah. Well, but I'll tell you this, and I've seen your dad, Steve, in a room. He still loves it, and just by your level of engagement across the company, but paying your civic rent, you love it as well. All right, before we go, do you have a professional win from the last week or two?
Well, just before I drove down here, today is Boss's Day, and the team surprised me, and the card was just amazing, and it was all, when we talk about getting to know your team members, what they like, et cetera, they put the Diet Coke and little Snickers on it, but the whole card was Taylor Swift's themed, and just really spoke to how much I know them, how well we all work together, and reading different examples and their thoughts. It means a lot to me to be able to work with that team every day, and that's my favorite part of coming to work is working with that team.
I mean, can you ask for anything better though?
I don't think so.
Than that. I mean, seriously.
Yep.
In any job, if that can be your answer, then you're winning.
Yep. I said my favorite thing is you guys, so keep it up.
Oh my goodness. Well, Emily, thank you so much for coming on today and saying yes instantly when I asked you to come on.
Of course. Well, thank you, and you do a wonderful job.
Yeah, thanks. Emily Schmitt, the Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel for Sukup Manufacturing. This is the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. Personal stories, professional journeys.